All right. Welcome back to another episode of Mine EX-Plorers.
Welcome back. Another episode. Here we are.
Here we are. Some cool things are coming up on the horizon with the Trump administration that we are excited about.
Yeah, big stuff and quickly too.
Yeah, very
this
quickly.
administration's only a few months old now. Really, like two? When's inauguration day? Like the 20th or something of January?
Yeah, something like that.
And so we're 2 months in.
2 months in and
lots
they're
happened.
rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing that just happened is this new executive order on boosting U.S. mineral production and impacts on exploration.
Yeah, and it's actually a series of executive orders. It's kind of a group of them, but
yeah, they're
all around boosting U.S. mineral production and reducing reliance primarily on China, which is something we've talked about a lot on this show.
Right. Right, and it's something that the previous administration talked about but really didn't do anything. And so now it's really cool that we're actually seeing executive orders to increase mineral production in the U.S.
And they're not just around funding more studies and encouraging more talk about critical minerals and boosting production. These are actually geared towards boosting production.
Right, creating more mines in the United States.
And more processing capability.
Yes.
Which is key. Smelting and refining capability is really the key.
It is.
We need more projects, yes, but we also need more smelting and refining capacity.
Right, because it's important. It doesn't make any sense for us to extract the critical minerals and then ship them off to other countries and then lose that entire supply chain.
Right, unless they're friendly countries or it's a tight supply chain, but like now we have one rare earth mine in the United States in Mountain Pass.
Yeah.
And they can refine to a certain extent, and then it goes to China for finishing and largely consumption, but that means the U.S. effectively has no supply.
Right.
So getting a lot of that onshore is big, and there's a lot of aspects of the executive orders that I think are pretty potent.
What do you think is the most potent right now?
Well, I think the fact that the agencies in charge of permitting have 10 days to provide an accounting of where they're at
That's
is
amazing.
Huge. Because I think for the last 2 decades, under lots of different administrations, the permitting agencies have largely just delayed everything.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to make a decision. You're a comfy bureaucrat sitting in your office. It's easier, instead of saying yes or no, just keep delaying. And there were no consequences for doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And now they have to provide a full accounting in 10 days, which is pretty phenomenal, because from there, the question is, okay, well, why are these delayed? And if they don't have an answer other than we wanted to delay them or we were told to delay them, then they got to get on it and get them moving. So I think that one's big.
Yeah, I mean, the permitting process in the U.S. is ridiculous. We're talking ridiculous. 10 to 20 years.
And, they say 7 to 10 years, and a lot of people quote that, but that's on the low end.
That is on the low end. That's an exception to the rule.
Right.
But primarily the rule is 15.
Yeah, and 15 to 20, or 30. And it depends on the size of the project.
Well, of course.
So if you include like sand and gravel mines and permitting, they may be 12 to 18 months in a lot of jurisdictions and as low as 3 to 6 months in others. But then like a copper mine, or the mines that actually produce the critical minerals we need today, your decades.
Decades.
And that needs to be fixed. And this is going to fix it, at least in the short term. So there's a lot of different aspects to it, but executive orders. Mm-hmm. So the courts are going to get their crack at shutting things down. The environmental groups that are very well funded are going to go full court press on challenging and getting whatever friendly judges they have to block different parts of this. But by my estimation, even if only 1/3 of it goes through and goes into effect, it's going to have a massive impact on the industry in the U.S.
Right.
So don't expect all of it.
No.
But some of it for sure. I mean, there's parts of it that are going to be highly controversial, like ordering the Army Corps of Engineers to have emergency powers to just approve things. A lot of that's going to get challenged through NEPA and other things like that. There's a lot of ammunition for the courts there and these NGOs with ridiculous amounts of funding. But other things like ordering the SBA to prioritize and give loans to exploration and mineral development companies is huge. And that's a big one because largely, like, I have clients all the time who ask about that. Is there government grants or funding? Is there SBAs? It's like yes and no, and largely no because they don't understand it. It's not a priority. Now it is. But one of the things that I'm most excited about is I think back to uranium.
Okay.
So uranium was worthless and sort of a liability for centuries. And then suddenly the atomic bomb's discovered and then nuclear energy. And the United States needed to secure uranium, but there wasn't a market, there wasn't a domestic supply. So what they did is they stockpiled uranium. They created a market, they created a supply, which created a huge boom of exploration throughout the Western United States.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
uranium
you could
was
pick up
discovered,
Geiger
it was
counters to
developed.
go out prospecting.
Yep, cheaply and affordably. People were encouraged to go prospect. And part of that was there was a defense component and it created this huge opportunity. Well, with these new executive orders, now the Pentagon is ordered to include minerals as part of their strategy, and now they have defense importance and capability put on them. And so looking at minerals, like now the Pentagon could create strategic stockpiles again of things like uranium and cobalt and rare earths and tungsten and any number of things. And then they can create a market again, much like they did with uranium, which will drive domestic production. But it goes even further. They can also now fund different projects that help them establish a domestic supply of these critical minerals. But it goes beyond critical minerals. It's a lot of minerals now. Copper's finally included in the critical minerals
Yeah, there was quite a
list,
list of them that you posted
which
here.
is huge. So I think that to me is one of the most important parts of this, and something that also, like, that's going to be hard to block. Ordering agencies to approve things and use emergency powers and circumvent, extraneous environmental reviews is going to get the hell's going to get challenged out of that. I mean, it's going to be constant challenges, but things like unlocking Pentagon funding, SBA, things like that, I think are going to go through and have a lot less challenges.
So do you think that will spike the junior miners and then we'll see a surge in exploration?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to benefit the companies with projects that are ready to go first.
Yeah.
So companies that have projects that are ready to go, that are permitted or close to permitted, that just need a little extra push, it's going to help all them first. Then there's the ones that are hung up in permitting. So we have Resolution, we have all the ones up around the Great Lakes that are big and important, and then we have projects in Alaska like Pebble. Those that have been hung up and stuck now get that extra push. And so that'll help. And then that gives the confidence to everyone else down the chain to continue to develop and produce. And then there's a lot of commodities and minerals that the bigger companies aren't even looking at. And that provides a good market for the juniors. Like there's talk about, cobalt coming back to the United States, looking at cobalt production. Well, that's not something that any of the major mining companies are looking at, but there's tons of opportunities for juniors. Things like antimony, tungsten.
Do we even have cobalt mines in the U.S.?
There's some potential ones, yeah. So
potential, but no active.
So it can be produced as a byproduct of.
Oh, like no,
nickel
Idaho.
Production.
Idaho has a cobalt
and then
mine.
Idaho, but it's not active. Also,
right.
On and off with permitting, but they're like right at the finish line, and this is going to definitely push them through.
That's exciting.
So regardless with these executive orders, regardless of what headwinds are faced now, just this push is enough to get a lot of them across the finish line. And then that runs down. I mean, we're in an industry that's been so demonized and so beaten down over the last 3 decades that just a little bit of positive attention at the executive level is going to have a huge effect.
Yeah.
I mean, it at a very minimum, retail investors and private equity and people like that who have just completely ignored mining are going to go, this is kind of interesting. And it really doesn't take much because you've got an industry that's been so underinvested in, and it's such a small allocation of any large portfolio that even just doubling or tripling the size of that allocation in the global financial market is meaningless.
No, it's nothing.
But to the mining industry, you're talking about a 10-fold increase in funding.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a massive increase. And so even just some of this capital rotating from big tech and things like that into mining and like basic resources, just a small rotation into that is going to be a huge difference. And so, even if 100% of the measures in these executive orders get blocked, it's still going to create a good tailwind for the industry.
Just enough.
It's just enough to help push a lot of stuff over.
Yeah.
So,
because we're getting back into the conversation on an executive level, which is where we've needed to be for a long time.
Yeah. So Biden talked about critical minerals and limited his scope to battery minerals, green minerals, things like that.
Yeah.
And he allocated a tiny amount of money to it, like $750 million, which funded 3 or 4 different companies that I know of, and I think most of the funding didn't even get allocated. And then Trump, prior to that, created some committees and asked people to do some research. And then Obama did the same. And so we've had 3 consecutive administrations of talking about doing something. And now we have a whole bunch of action all at once.
Now we have an executive order to do something.
Right. Do something.
Yeah. And that's what we need. We need to do something. Because,
Right.
I mean, mineral exploration takes a long time. You can't just put a hole in the ground. You have to prove it up. You have to make sure it's economical. You have to make sure the grades are there.
Right.
And you have to make sure that you're taking care of the environment throughout the entire process.
Right. Yeah, and that's an important part. So I summarized the big article I wrote that breaks all this down. I summarized sort of towards the conclusion that there's a lot of talk, there's some action now, there needs to be follow through. These agencies, they got their 10 days, they've got all this other stuff. They need to not delay, they need to deliver. The SBA needs to do its part. The Pentagon needs to do its part, which I think they'll be enthusiastic to do, honestly, at that level. And then all of these review agencies, from the Army Corps of Engineers to all the other agencies to the Department of Interior, that's now been ordered to consider mineral development as the highest use of public lands where minerals are.
Yes.
Which is huge.
Huge, because the BLM had the public lands rule where conservation was the highest priority for public lands.
Potentially. It was a priority, But the goal was ultimately to make it the highest priority.
To make your public lands not public.
Right, not
which
public.
Is frustrating.
Lock them up, put them away,
Yeah.
And when you see the enormous amount of acreage out there that's already protected.
Nevada is 90% public lands.
Right. There's an insane amount. And out of that, by acreage, like what, 3% is actually being developed and mined?
Yeah, it's such a tiny.
It's not even 10%.
No.
So when you look at all that's going on, it's a huge opportunity. And I think that action needs to happen, and then the big thing is the mining companies need to walk the walk now.
Yes.
So
absolutely,
the industry's been saying for all these years, we have high standards, we're going higher than the standards for environmental protection, for social engagement in the community and social license, and ESG and we're above and beyond. We're already putting all this in. Now it's time to walk the walk. So, okay, let's roll back all the overbearing regulation and now be adults. And you need to take care of things and do things the right way. And keep your promises. That is so key.
Yes.
So personally, I've been excited all day, buzzing, talking about all this, meetings, talking to media, writing articles, all in it. But one of the big things that's been my only real hesitation is I get concerned about the promoters coming back into the sector.
Yeah.
So the
pump
shady
and
pump and dump, make a quick buck. They rotate out of cannabis.
The billion-dollar valuations on one soil sample.
They all disappeared and they got into cannabis and crypto, which were ripe for fraud, ripe for pump and dump. And my concern is on the backs of this, some of them are going to rotate back into mining.
Well, you know they will.
And heaven forbid they get a blank check from somebody at a DOD office or something somewhere, and they go out and they just muck everything up and make a huge mess of things.
So let that be a warning to anyone who wants to invest in mining: is do your due diligence.
Yeah, for sure, because the industry's been cleaning itself up, and all the pump and dump guys have been shook out by now. There's very few left.
Yeah.
But with something like this, they come back in, and it's important that the industry stays vigilant, consultants and service providers stay vigilant and make sure that things are being done right. If you see shady technical reports or you see things done without a permit, the industry, if we're going to roll back a lot of federal regulations, which the industry's been used to shouldering for so long, and now they're gone, we need to really get out there and set a good example and be like, look, things are being done better than ever without the regulations.
Let's keep that standard.
We need to prove that we can keep up the standard. We have our big boy pants on, and keep away from the shady operators and stuff. But that's my only real concern and hesitation. And even still, like, I think investors are getting smarter.
Investors are getting smarter. I don't know. I think people will still lose money. People lose money all the time, right? It's so easy, easy to make a bad investment, and not every project is going to go, regardless of having a shady prospector or having a legitimate company do it. It's just the name of the game. But I think that the shady people will flush themselves out. Anyway.
Yeah, they do. They just tend to get flushed out a lot easier in a hard market.
Oh yeah.
And they flourish.
They've been gone for a long time.
I mean, you look at crypto, right? Like Bitcoin, Ethereum, a few things like very small circles, small community, small value. Everybody in there was in there because they love the tech, they love the projects. And then when everything takes off and you've got, 20,000 and above Bitcoin, it really took off. Then all this crazy stuff came into the sector, and it was, let's tokenize everything, literally everything, right?
Yeah.
and all that came in. It's like mining. Right now we're in the mining, like the people still in mining that care about mining, that are really working hard to advance mining, really care about it and love it. Nobody's in it to make a quick buck because there's no quick bucks to be made.
A quick buck is about 10 to 15 years.
It is a hard industry for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a prospector out staking claims and taking soil samples trying to vend your project.
That's probably the hardest.
Or you're an investment banker or anyone in between. Like, it's a hard industry for
there's
everyone.
Risk. If you take out the environmentalists who will push and shove, right, the entire time, if you just take those guys out and you say, okay, here's a piece of land, I want you to develop a mine on here, there's no guarantee that you can, because you go where the minerals are. Right? You don't get to choose, so you have to go and find them, and all of the easy discoveries are gone. So now everything is well below surface, which means that to do a simple exploration program, you got to drill. Drilling's not cheap, and drilling isn't going to get cheaper.
No.
There's limited supply of drillers out there, and they are going to be swamped.
All the service providers are.
It's going to be a boom year.
Yeah, I mean,
Or years. Could be a decade.
We're going to have, I see the rest of this decade for sure. I see a huge boom in U.S. exploration and mining through 2030. Then after this administration, it depends on the success of the program.
Right.
If it's successful and there's economic benefits and the American people see the benefits without downsides or very many downsides, it'll continue. But if it's wasted and squandered, because it's going to be under a microscope. I mean, these environmental groups are extremely well funded, extremely diligent, and in a lot of cases, they're not very ethical. So they're going to have everything under a microscope. And they are not afraid to exaggerate, fabricate, whatever. So the industry really has to shine, take advantage of these changes, do the best we can, and that will determine how far into the future this goes.
I know, we really need our own like PR firm. Every mine needs its own PR firm of just going out and promoting.
Yeah, but also I think more importantly, they need to focus on their core values. All this stuff we've been talking about for a decade now.
Yeah.
ESG, going above and beyond, getting the community involved, hiring indigenous groups, training them, getting them involved in your project, having an equity stake in the success or failure.
Yeah, investing in the local communities.
All of that stuff needs to happen now. So the mining industry made a lot of promises, but was up against a lot of barriers. Now, if the barriers are removed, they need to deliver, and that will determine how far this goes.
Yeah, and I
otherwise, it's going to be done in 2030.
Yeah, yeah.
But this could be the beginning of a 30-year cycle.
A whole new era of mining.
Yeah,
it really could. It really could. I mean, for the most part, the mining industry has really taken a turn over the last few decades. You know, we're getting tired of being wasteful and making messes, and we do want to do best for the communities that we work in. We've seen lots of really good programs come out of mining's being in local communities. So it's just keeping up that momentum and keeping a good eye in the public's view.
And the industry, because so much capital has gone into other things and been rotated out of the industry into tech, and it's all the downstream stuff, right? So it starts with the minerals and it ends with cell phones and AI and NVIDIA and microchips and Teslas and all that. Everyone's focused so much of the capital at the end of that spectrum and so little in between that there's going to be a pretty strong kind of elastic effect of bouncing back. But the benefit of that is, when do efficiencies happen? When you remove excess from a system. So when do you lose weight and get more efficient and are able to run further and have more energy and all that?
When you trim that fat.
It's when you trim that fat. Like,
oh yeah.
Eating more doesn't give you more energy.
No, it gives you less.
Eating more doesn't give you more efficiency.
Yeah.
I can drink sugar and caffeine all day long, and over time, I'm actually going to get less and less efficient at everything.
Yep.
Thinking, sleeping, walking around, all of it. So you think about capital the same way. The mining industry has been capital starved for so long.
Yeah, it's going to get an energy boost.
We've gotten really efficient. So the key now is to keep those efficiencies and carry them forward.
Yep, don't get bloated.
But do carry through with the promises. There's been so many promises around ESG and environmental stuff that now it's time to carry through. Like,
that's exciting.
Let's approve, like, fast track all these permits and now go out and wow everybody.
Well, I mean, the thing is like the fast track of the permits is you still have to do the work. It doesn't mean that we get to skip all the environmental side. Like, you still have to do, they're not going to take away, like, make the permit process easier.
Right.
So we're still covering all of the bases. It's just the government, really what it is the government's finally going to do their job.
Right.
That's what it means. Like, we are still doing our job. We still have to get everything ready and organized and stamp of approval. But now the government gets to participate in that.
Yeah, they can't just punt
Sit on
something
it.
they don't want to decide on.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah,
It's about
it's like,
it's
let's
about
go.
time.
Yeah, and we've done like resolution for 3 decades now. You think every single thing hasn't been studied and looked at 7 different ways?
Yeah.
All of it. And the economics are so well proven now, and the mine's so well planned out, and all the factors have been thought about that there's so few surprises that could happen at this point. I mean, we're not talking about fast tracking ideas that were had yesterday. I mean, the stuff that's in queue to be fast tracked has been worked on for decades, like all of them.
I mean, even in reality, if, say, we were to so we're at a 20-year average permitting process, right? I mean, what
For major projects.
For major projects. I guess what constitutes a major project?
I'm talking $2 billion in capital expenditure.
Right.
Yeah.
Where do you think this could go? I mean, do you think we could get into that Canada and Australia range of like 3 to 5 years?
In the long term.
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
I mean, we'll take what we can get, let's be honest.
It's going to be tumultuous, but I will take a choppy sea over the doldrums any day.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been in the mining doldrums here in the United States for decades. Mm-hmm. And so I'll take a choppy sea where one day we've got a 20-mile-an-hour tailwind pushing us along, and maybe the next day we've got a 5-mile-an-hour headwind pushing us backwards and we're just sitting still versus 30 years of just sitting still.
Yeah.
And from an investor standpoint, now it goes from a hurry up and wait to a it's in process. There has to be a response. Things can't just sit anymore. So I'll take that. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster.
I'm excited.
Especially for us. Like,
oh, yeah.
At Burgess and
we're going to be nuts.
What we do, yeah. I mean, we're going to be nuts. And in terms of service providers who have our unique skill set, I can count on my fingers how many firms there are.
Yeah, there's not many of us.
And they're all about the size that we are. There's 1 or 2 that are a little bit bigger, and there's a bunch that are smaller, but we're all going to be at capacity quickly. So, I mean, the benefit and maybe a bit of self-promotion is existing clients will probably get precedence. So if you've been a client of our firm or similar firms for a long time, you're going to be well positioned. Mm-hmm. But like new groups coming out of the woodwork and like hoping to get things going are going to have to either pay rush rates for everything or going to have to wait, because I think there's going to be a priority for existing clients who have been in the trenches with us.
For sure.
And the other firms like ours. I mean, and there are, like, we know the clients who have been in the trenches.
Yes.
For a long time.
I know. I'm excited to see him win.
Yeah.
I want to see him win.
I think some wins are around the corner, and that's a good thing. I mean,
yeah.
I see our aggregate clients win all the time.
Yes.
Sand and gravel, crushed stone, lime, cement.
It's an immediate market.
Industrial minerals, some of them. Frac sand, I've seen big wins and big losses. But our aggregate clients, I see them win. They acquire, there's M&A, there's sales, it's fluid, dynamic, it flows. But our metals clients, metals, non-metals, I know executives of junior companies that are on like their 5th company in a row that's basically just run into the doldrums, right?
Just floating by, just like hoping they can raise that next bit of money to stay afloat.
And they have good projects.
Yeah. They just need a little bit more. I mean, mining's expensive.
I mean, we work with clients who have good projects, and we choose to work with clients who have good projects, and we still watch them suffer almost every day.
Yeah.
I mean, the wins are small and the losses are small, but they add up over time. And so, like I said, a little bit of a push is going to help a lot, because what this does is it gets attention. And there's so many big funds with so many billions of dollars on the sideline looking for investments that aren't another multifamily development somewhere,
right,
or another data center. There's so much money and capital in that space that just a little bit goes, you know what, I'm going to invest in mining. That would make all the difference for a lot of these guys.
They really would.
Because there's really two problems, right? We have the regulatory issues, which all these executive orders aim to at least help alleviate some of it. And then there's the funding issue. And that's that most junior exploration companies are struggling to get funding. And this provides potential to help both. Mm-hmm. So things are lined up really well. I think it's very interesting.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be in the industry. It's cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really good episode. I'm
excited. Hey, if you have any comments, put them down below and we'll...
Comments, yep. More things we can follow up on.
Let's keep talking about this. This could be a game changer.
Yep, I think it's big. Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks for watching.